what I like, what I like.
I mix what I like is exactly where you want and need to be. I mix what I like organic, vegan, soul food from your immediate diet. Live healthy.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, what's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like right here on Black Liberation Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Very happy to be your host. Make sure as you file on in for what is clearly the best and only all sports, specifically football related show you need to be aware of. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon. The link is in the show description as we continue through these demonetized wilderness streets. Show your support. And if you can't materially or are not interested materially, do the immaterial, respectful thing. Just like, share, subscribe, comment, so on and so on and so on and so on. So a lot going on. We wanted to get to. The football crew is soon to reconvene. We look forward to folks filing in. But we wanted to, from my humble perspective, commemorate the exit from Copa America made by the United States, and to get into some of those things. So let's get into it. At least three-fourths of us are here. Mutanda, Daniel, fellas, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining me and us. How are the both of you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me again. Or us, I should say.
Right on. Right on. We
Is
expect Robert to...
Is Robert
I don't know.
popping up, or?
I have no idea. I actually thought everybody agreed to do this, but I may have missed. Maybe we didn't give. Did he not respond? I don't know. Maybe I missed something.
I don't think he did, to be fair.
Oh, really? Oh, whoops. Oh, no, I was sure he did. No way he didn't.
But
I'm just looking through the chat.
He didn't respond to the time, but he might have responded like with links. So
yeah, he sent He sent stuff. He was. Yeah. I don't know. Was he saying? I don't know. Mutanda, how are you doing though? Welcome back.
Good. I'm good. Thank you. Good to see you both. Thanks for having me again.
All right. Well, I'll double check with Robert. So listen. So essentially, what was it? The night before last, Monday night, right?
Yeah.
The USA, Uruguay, needing to at least do as well as Panama did against Bolivia, failed to score a goal, were bounced 1-0. Panama beat Bolivia 3-1, punching their ticket through, that is Panama, and exiting the United States. So around here, it was a lot of high fives, a lot of toasts, a lot of toasts. But I will say, and then I'll kick it over to the both of you, I cannot help it, because traditionally, before marrying into a Panamanian family, my method was always being what I felt was nationless, someone without a nation to which I felt attached, would just root for the team with the most black players. That was just my rule. No science, no, And I did find myself during that moment, because I know a little bit about the racism in Uruguay, and seeing the lack of particularly Afro-descended Latinos on the team. It was a little bit of a conflict, because the USA has stepped up its encroachment on the brothers for the men's side. So there were a lot of brothers running around out there, and I felt a little bit conflicted until I saw the fans. And as soon as they cut to the fans, I was like, oh, never mind. Anyway, so that's just my quick 2 cents. Let me turn it over to you, and then I'll see if I can track down Robert for us.
Go ahead, Mutanda, bro.
No, man, go ahead.
I don't have much to say other than like if we're toasting, like I have a drink, but it's water. But
water works.
I don't drink, so I have enough.
That's smart. Good for you.
No, like I don't smoke and I don't drink because clearly I have a problem with food. So I've chosen that as my thing to try to overcome. So drink and smoke, I don't do that.
See, so, I've had to work out the because I'm a drink and I'm a smoke, so I got to cut down on the calories. It's a struggle.
But football.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nah, like you would say America putting themselves in a position where they need to beat Uruguay, and the last game was already the loss. Uruguay are top 3 in South America, maybe top 4 if you look at Colombia, or on reputation, top 3. In terms of form, probably still top 3, but you drop Brazil and put Colombia. So going down to 10 men, Tim Weah, son of George Weah, only African Ballon d'Or winner, former president of Liberia, all of that. Him choosing to play for the United States is maybe something you could get into, but he got a red card, and that led to 10 men for the United States against Panama, and Panama took care of business. So...
Yeah, my man Todd chiming in. Black men discussing football. Too bad I'm too much of a geek to enjoy the power of this. Yeah, it's okay, Todd. It's all right.
So yeah, like not being able to beat Panama, and obviously you have Bolivia in the group who are kind of the minnows. Everybody beat them. You put yourself in a position, or they put themselves in a position where you have to beat one of the top 3 teams in South America, and you're probably not going to be able to do that, despite Mutanda saying they played well in the first half. So
yeah, I want to, Jared, you and you had mentioned this in previous chats, so I want to kind of go back to this and pose a question for clarification, but I also think it'll aid the discussion. Do you think, watching football with that lens of kind of who has the most black players, right? Is that something, and positive, you went over this, is that something you still do, or is it kind of like, obviously you're always against the empire, or is it like, what is your process really now? And of course, obviously, because this one's easy, right? Panama was playing and you married into it. But however you got there, it's an easy one.
And Panama is black as hell as a team and a country, so it just that part made it a lot easier. Yeah.
But for example, what you bring up with Uruguay and the U.S., because for example, what if the U.S. is playing Argentina?
I know, it's terrible. I'm probably gonna end up. Can they both lose? Can everybody get hurt and be stretchered off? And it's like the trainer's playing the trainer. I don't know. Honestly, I would probably be. Well, it's happened before, and I end up whatever I think going in defaulting to rooting against the U.S. It's not. Again, I'm not looking even to defend it. It's not logical. There's no science. It's just. And you're right. I mean, I felt it. I did feel it the other night. I was like, Uruguay? Like they have like real racist problem. No, because I don't have any. I mean, I don't really follow it like that to have any real feelings. If I watch club football, if I'm not rooting for my daughter's team just because she's lumped onto Liverpool, and we'll see how that lasts over this next transition. That might have been fair weather. She came into sort of consciousness at a time where they were at the top, you know what I mean? So like, we'll see how long this lasts, but yeah, I just like to see a good game. I like to see a good matchup. I do like a good storyline. I like when England loses just because the pundits go crazy. I do enjoy that. I do like when Man United lose because of the same reason. So but again, there's no, like, I don't feel any kind of way like I used to when I watched U.S. football back in the day, and I was really attached to a team, and a true fanatic. So I just enjoy the sport now more than in some ways. In some ways, it's unfair because I appreciate and empathize with actual fans of actual teams and actual countries, except for the U.S. because I think all that's fake and just jingoism. But that's it. Oh, and Robert's here. What's up, Robert? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. All right. So that was it though. That's really it. It does become a major contradiction. And I felt it the other night when Uruguay was playing, because I do know a little bit about the racism in that country. But
no, I appreciate that. And I guess the second part of that makes sense. I was gonna make a joke, but it's not really even a joke. It's just real. Is that the hate watching is strong, right? It's strong, and that's I think that's typically for a lot of people, whether it's international or it's club. The next part of it though is like, because we discussed briefly like this concept of meaning and around not just football, of course, but sport in general, and kind of how. This is where this discussion becomes fascinating for me, right? Is because I think we can all agree here. We all can get into trouble, right? When we're watching the sport, if we only watch it in terms of like a rooting standpoint from one lens, right? Even if that's just the race lens. For example, the Euros, right? If you watch that with any level of commitment at all, right? And by commitment, I mean if you watch just even one game, one match that you pay attention to, you watch France versus Belgium, for example. For us, with a left politics, black radical politics, Pan-Africanist, whatever, so on and so forth, how do you watch France and Belgium and have make any sort of like coherent rooting strategy, right? If
Belgium went into their African bag. I didn't even, honestly, I don't think I knew Doku was Belgian.
Bro, they've been, but that's exactly. You know how France did it earlier, I feel like, but Belgium 100% is there. So it's like, what do you anyway, I'll throw that back out before we.
No, that was rough. No, that was, look, again, there's no logic to it. It was rough. But yeah, I know, Robert, you're just joining us late. And folks, again, I just want to remind, I don't do tremendously great intros here, but the work of all of these three men is in the show description. The link's there, and it's all of great value. So I encourage people to check that out. But anybody, any initial thoughts? And then Robert, if you want to add something to the Brazil game the other night, last night. Yeah, go ahead.
I got somewhat of not of a digression, but
all right.
In terms of my contact information, I have a new version of my book out in audio.
Oh, really?
And it's
congratulations.
It's on the Amazon website, which I know is polemic, but I want to get the word out about the book, just because as I'm speaking to you, God is my witness, I have every intention of upsetting the American apple cart with respect to this sport. So if you can spread the word, I greatly appreciate it. I'd love to.
I mean, in part, that's what we do here all the time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
we So why don't we? So I know we our roster's getting a little long here, and we have to deal with that the paper we got and Daniel's sort of parallel piece. Sort of. But I think we should do a show where we all really do just an actual focus on your book.
Okay, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Let's just revisit it and make that the actual focus.
That'd be cool.
So I'm happy to schedule that. And again, congratulations on the audio version. Whose voice are we going to hear?
Mark Zapata.
All right.
He's good. He's good. He's
okay.
I was surprised at the consistency, because it's not easy to do, man. It's like I worked with him obviously over the whole course of the book.
Right on. That's the book there, right? Football Manifesto.
Yeah,
the link to that is in the show description.
Yeah, except that I noticed that link is to Abe's books.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Where should it be? Well, send me the link.
I'll
I
send you
got
the
it.
link.
Didn't I get it from you? I don't know. Send me whatever link you want to go down there. I'll fix
I'll
it.
send you the link. Yeah. I'll send you the link. But yeah, man. I mean, it is what it is. It's
Or send me the link to the audio book, and we'll make that. Since I'm assuming that's what we want to promote, right?
Yeah, I can do
now,
that for sure.
Or whichever links you want. Send me all the links.
I'll
Just
send
send
the
me
links.
all the links. I'll fix all the show description.
But I
stuff.
would love to go into detail about that. With respect to the prior conversation that I jumped into, were you guys talking about Brazil, or what were you talking about?
Well, we had started with the U.S. loss and being bounced out, and just the hate watching, and then I had made a comment about traditionally I would watch or root for the team with the most black players, and I felt conflicted because I wanted the U.S. to lose, but they had the most black players by far. So I was, it was like that was, sort of dwelling on that for a minute, and the contradiction there, but and particularly the racism of Uruguay, which I know you know about, and others on the gallery will know, and others, I'm sure in the chat knows everything. They have a very particular racist history, like an Argentinian style racist history.
Except I would say it's not as bad as Argentina.
Maybe not as bad. I mean, obviously, you get the Nazis dropped off in your country. That gives you a leg up on the white supremacy rankings. But I'm just saying, and then and then of course famously the disappearances that I don't know if Uruguay had quite reached that level of abuse of political prisoners,
they had their abuses for sure.
But when I did the one class I took in grad school on ethnomusicology, which I think had some things changed, would have been a field I would have enjoyed. The woman teaching the course, a brilliant woman from Argentina, but the one failure is when I asked her, because she would talk endlessly about the political prisoners being disappeared in Argentina, and when I brought up the Black liberation struggle and the political prisoners here as a way of bonding with her, she shot it down and joined the U.S. standard line of that there are no political prisoners in the United States and never have been. And I just was like, oh, okay, now
you know where she's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. I said, okay.
I wish you had said something to her about the Argentinian genocide, because I don't know how she would have danced around that one.
Well, I didn't at the time in particular, and even now probably, I don't know enough about that history, but I did just quickly, as respectfully as possible, let her know how wrong she was. In misreading the history of the country that was now housing her and all of that. But I was trying to say, like, don't let the experiences of Argentina cut you off from what happened here. It should open you up to what is happening.
And she had no sympathy for that, I'm sure.
Oh no, she was strong. Like it messed up the class and relationship for us, but because she was strong and she was disrespectful even in condemning what I was trying to argue. But
you can't have any kind of legitimate intellectual discourse with people who believe people of color are less than human.
And as we just got the news yesterday that Leonard Peltier is not going to be granted parole and is likely going to have to die in prison, even though the FBI know they can't prove who killed those agents on Pine Ridge. But look. So she was wrong. We're right. But go ahead, Robert. Yeah.
Well,
I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah.
No. But so this whole thing about, down here, everybody here wanted to see Brazil win for a very simple reason, and that was to avoid Uruguay in the next round. That's really the whole kind of enchilada, so to speak. Now that they have to face Uruguay in the next round, there's a bit of panic. But, strangely enough, I don't know if I didn't see the game. I only saw the highlights. So from what I understand, Vinny Jr. is not playing in this next game.
No, he got another yellow, and the yellow I thought it was a terrible call. It was such a soft, I don't know. Mutanda maybe disagrees. Maybe you look like you might disagree, but it wasn't the kind of foul where you were like, oh damn, he messed up when he got a yellow, he can't play. It was like, damn, really?
Well, you know,
Ref-
I don't
refereeing-
want. I didn't
was
see it.
commenting on the
I'm with
referee.
Pepe on this one. The yellow on Vinny was awful.
My
Pepe, I gotta go
reaction,
Pepe on that
Jared.
one.
My reaction, Jared, just was because of the state of refereeing in general. So it's not
Mm. Oh, and we could get to the other games too, because it was bad.
wild, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that amazes me when I watch these games, with all, I mean, even after the game, from the highlights I looked at here in Brazil, the Brazilian players were all up in the referee's face after the game, and as long as I've been looking at this sport, I have never in my life seen a field referee or a sideline judge change their opinion based on players coming up to them and protesting. It's never happened. I've never seen it.
But that's not why they do it. But I don't think that's why they do. Sorry to cut you off. I've always interpreted they're not doing. It's for the next call.
Well,
I think it's for the next call.
But I mean,
that's what I think.
But it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference.
In the game
most of these referees
Colombia and Brazil, the reason they were surrounding the ref is because at the end of the match, Brazil had a long throw with
that's right.
They had a corner. He ended the game on a corner.
I was getting there. I was getting there.
My bad. Sorry.
They had a long throw with 95 minutes on the clock.
Okay.
And Rafinha throws it in, and somehow the Colombians kick it out, and Brazil should have had a corner. But then the referee looks at his watch, and it's like 95-30, 95-40, and he blows for full time. The Brazilians then surround the referee and are like, how come we don't get to kick the corner? And he points at his watch, and he's like, well, what can I do? And that's the reason they're surrounding him. So in that context, it kind of makes sense why how come you can't let us have our corner? Indeed, my view was, if you weren't willing to give a probable outcome of the throw-in, which is a corner, don't allow the throw-in to begin with. It was already after the 95 minutes. So don't even allow Rafinha to throw it in the box if you're not willing to deal with the consequences. So let's say Rafinha throws it in and Davinson Sanchez handballs it. Would the referee blow for full
penalty?
Time?
Exactly.
Because it was a penalty? No, he would obviously give the penalty, which would probably, after VAR checks and whatnot, take more time than the conclusion of the corner. So, to Mutanda's point,
isn't the rule,
it's more about the state of refereeing than anything.
And isn't the rule that even with extra time, the point is if they say there's 5 minutes of extra time,
it's the minimum.
The minimum.
Right.
Exactly. So it's not like you have to end it right at 5 minutes.
In that context, I understand the Brazilians chasing him, but Robert's correct. It's not going to change anybody's mind. Like what's done is done.
But the other thing was that they, I thought, had initiated a rule for this tournament that said only the captain can talk to the ref, and if anyone else talks to the ref, it's an automatic yellow. They weren't really enforcing that either.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there should have been a lot of cards because there was a lot of, which was a rule I actually liked, but.
You know what I would want to know? Because I've been noticing that in the Euros, there was a Swedish judge or a Swedish referee in one of the games. And my bias being my bias, I noted that the players he was really quick to book were African. So I would want to know, is the referee, and I think I know the answer, but are referees more apt to book a black player running at them complaining than a non-African player running at them complaining?
Yes.
I would want to know the stats, and I think I
have no science. I'm just saying yes out the gate.
Because it's like the white dude ran over there and complained too, but he was quick to just be like,
all right, hold on. Let me write this down. Wait a minute. Let me just get the rubric correct. It's players who run at the ref,
right,
complain
about a call, but who aren't captain. Do they get booked? Even Mbappe complained once and got
get booked. All right, I'm gonna let me see if I can.
There can't be any evidence on this.
Sure there is. All we have to do is go. We have to get a sample size of games and go watch the games.
That's a lot of research, but it would be worth it.
Oh, it's our research to do.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch one game.
90 minutes.
No,
Never in my life.
I'm gonna start. I'm gonna make. I'm gonna. Let's put a little.
This is
let's
one of
make
the
it
most
no,
like
no.
confirmation biases research project that you could ever do.
No,
Pretty
they're
much.
absolutely no. I disagree. Seriously, if we really put in if we really put in the right variables and got an appropriate sample size and did the right coding, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff for this all the time. I just was looking at research. One of my favorite things that I never followed up on from last year was when they were talking about interracial couples in commercials, and the science got even into the complexion of the Black person who was the Black representative in that interracial couple, and they got down to everything to literal seconds on screen, who said what. There are ways to do it.
My biggest problem with those commercials is that the child never looks mixed race.
Man, we're going. No, but
I say never, hardly. I'm like, that's not your mom. Stop lying to me in this commercial.
Let me clarify what I'm saying, Jared. Is that?
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
No. But like, no, it's not. It's my fault. There's research already behind. I think we might have even discussed this in other episodes about, for example, the commentary, right? Language that is used between.
Oh, definitely.
And the difference, like, this is out there. So what I'm saying is, yes, undoubtedly, the hypothesis I think that we can all probably agree on, that we share, is certain players, be it of a certain complexion or whatever, or even certain nations. We saw this in CAF, right? In Africa, certain nations get where the referees might be quicker, right? Or certain players, 100%.
I can see that.
So I like, yes, I'm not invalidating that process, Jared. Like, oh, we can do this, we can do that. I don't doubt that you can do it. I think we would come to
inconclusive results.
I think we would come to conclusions that we suspect if we do it right. So
I see.
Do you know what? There's probably
I don't think we would get.
Somebody probably already did it.
More.
If you look at the Premier League, probably has this evidence.
Yeah.
Or maybe the French league or some, not international football, but a league. Somebody's probably done this for a league.
They have, yeah.
You're
just
right.
on like a research study for like Cambridge.
Yes.
Or
but
something.
but you see how specific you guys got. This is what I'm saying. Like, really, are we gonna? You got to.
But no, you have to get specific when you're doing those papers, don't you? You have to like.
Oh, but
as specific as possible is best.
That's a lot of, like, there's so many different variables that go into that, right? But anyway.
And then Musa brings up a good point here about the commentary in Spain or the Spanish leagues being harsher on African players, and I wonder what it would look like if we coded and did it, in Spanish versus English commentary, like what differences we might find in that as well.
Probably not too much difference.
Probably not too much, but maybe in subtlety, or I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
You want another drinking game? That might be more.
Yeah, let's do that.
Pace and power.
That's it. Take a drink, and then note the complexion of the person being referenced.
PMP, pace and power.
Pace and power.
But yeah, so.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jared.
Oh, no.
No, I was going to turn back to the topic at hand and try to get back, because I know we had some vigorous back and forth in the chat. And there's a couple, I don't know if there are some clips we wanted to bring up, because there was some interesting commentary that we were, debating a little bit in the chat. But yeah, go ahead.
I have just a question for all of us as we kick off, because the main topic at hand is the U.S. being knocked out. I hear it, right? And then we just kind of touching on Brazil a little bit. Now, I want to be very clear, because I think I have a slightly different, and I acknowledge this in the chat, right? So for folks who don't know, to get up to date with what we're talking about, I acknowledge that my stance might be slightly different than others, only in this sense that, and I do think it's important to clarify, there's a distinction here when we talk about, I think it was Daniel's point earlier, right? About all of the things that go around football in this country, right? So whether that's what pundits, ex-players have to say, fans, like really like patriotic fans, because obviously there's a difference in who watches and who follows the sport and who roots for the national team, and kind of the expectations around the men's program given the geopolitical standing of the United States. So there's that, and then there's also like kind of more where I'm not just solely where I'm coming from, but also more where I'm watch from, which is then there's the actual like footballing product, right? And process and pathway, et cetera, which includes the coaches and all that. So I think there's somewhat of it. Now, of course, there's overlap and it all comes in, but this is one of my main points is I maintain the U.S. men's national team is better than a lot of people give them credit for, because a lot of people will come at it and just be like, no, they suck because soccer in the U.S. sucks. And I don't agree with that statement. At the same time, of course, they're not elite. And I've never said that they are elite. But that's kind of, I wanted to clear that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I don't know if people disagree with that kind of framing of the issue, or if there's another issue. I'm not saying that's the sole issue here. I just want to clarify my stance within the chat, and then we can discuss. But
anybody have any? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, if I'm correct, I feel like Robert has the most difference that I can detect between Mutanda and his stance. So I'd like to hear what Robert thinks about maybe how American football should be viewed relative to the rest of the world, and is it in a good standing, mediocre, poor? Because you said it was third world, if I remember.
He said it was third world, and he's called it pitiful too, which I'm like.
So I would like to get your frame, and yeah, I'll shut up.
Well, so let me qualify the pitiful first, because the pitiful is in the context of being literally at the imperial core. If you are the imperial core, which the United States still is, you would expect that their football would be at a level of global excellence to compete on a par with the other quote unquote European powers, and Argentina and Brazil and Uruguay, which are the quote unquote powers of Latin America.
What is this? England?
Is that a receipt? Sorry.
England is part of that European power. As a matter of fact, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the United States and England are the same country, but that's another story. But my beef is, as you know, which is what my book is about. My beef is that the quality of play of the men's team, including MLS, is underperforming and is mediocre by any global standard of excellence on purpose. This isn't some, failure of the development of the sport because they got the business model wrong, or they just can't find the players, or they can't find the coaches, or the development model and, the ability to find talent on the ground is not working the way it should work. All of that stuff that's going on that leads us to see the results that we see. And I'll, qualify what I'm saying about this men's World Cup team, or this men's national team. I don't think that since 1994, this team has made a qualitative distinction that is different from the quality of play that was played in 1994. So you could say that in 1994, they were decent. They beat Colombia in the World Cup, and Colombia was one of the favorites, right? But if you look at the history of the men's national team through the years since 1994, and actually I sent in the WhatsApp, in the chat, an interview with Hercules Gomez criticizing the U.S. men's national team historically, and saying basically that even those teams had, even though they weren't consistently winning, they had their wins. You had the team winning something, whether it be Portugal in the World Cup in Brazil, or some of the friendlies that the U.S. national team was winning in Europe. I think they beat Germany, on one of those road trips back in the early.
Wait a minute, Robert. sorry to cut you off. I'm listening, even as I had to run out real quick. Casey Keller, I think maybe in that same clip you sent, and if you want, we can pull it up and play it, or at least some of it. And Mutanda, I know you sent one too. That was maybe the same one, but I watched all of them. And my point though is that Casey Keller and Herculez Gomez were also saying that the U.S. had major signature wins back in the day.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I was saying.
They beat Argentina 3-0 in a knockout round in Copa America. Was one of the Keller's examples to make your point and to support Herculez Gomez's argument. And this crew, the Golden Generation, can't put one together. Sorry,
they haven't. I think that's the whole point. They haven't done much of anything. And if you look at the progress, the competitive progress that's been made since 1994, with most of the other leading quote unquote nations that field men's teams, you've got a gap that hasn't closed.
That's his point. His point is what Robert, I think, is saying, that for all the talk of improvement, better generation, the golden generation, more resources, more attention, they couldn't do it. And then I don't know and then I don't know if you heard it the same way I heard it, but then Herculez Gomez goes in and says that I took him to say that the real reason that they can't compete or going forward can't hire the coach that they need is because women got equal pay. And they would have to pay the women's coach as much as they paid Zinedine Zidane. And I was like, whoa.
I couldn't believe that comment. I mean, that was just like mind-boggling, mind-boggling. I mean, that's in other words,
I never heard of the game, so I just looked it up. It was like a 1995 game where Argentina lost to the United States 3-0. So I was like, I didn't know when, but like it's 30 years ago.
But he said, but his point was that this generation can't even do that. So wait a minute. One, I did have a question. Is that true? So if they paid Zinedine Zidane $20 million to coach, they would have to pay the women's coach $20 million?
That's bullshit. That collective bargaining agreement, as far as I know, I haven't read it, so I have to qualify that. But as far as I know, that has to do with the program itself. So maybe that includes coaches, but it certainly includes players. So the players,
now
the players are obligated, without question. The players are obligated to split between the men and the women any earnings that they respectively get in their respective tournaments. So that's clear. Whether this includes coaches is hard for me to believe.
Can I just play that clip real quick?
Yeah, please do. Because aside from the fact, the women's coach.
Hello.
Emma Hayes, they should have hired Emma to be the men's coach. That's what they should have done.
Facts.
Now that's interesting. I don't know anything about her, but clearly Greg Berhalter, coaching the men, candidate. Let me just play this one because I thought this was.
If he were to be replaced, Casey, who are the names that we'd be looking at? Could you actually be so ambitious to be looking at somebody who is available, like a Zinedine Zidane, or is that way off? Because we did hear a lot of names linked with this, and maybe many of them were rumors. What would that look like?
Yeah, you really can't do it. I mean, simply because of kind of the pay structure within U.S. soccer, because not only if you were to quadruple the men's salary to bring in a Zinedine Zidane on their charter and what they've agreed to do, that means they would have to quadruple the women's salary as well. And it just, I think budgetary, I think it just doesn't make sense. I think they're pretty much capped out at where they're at. So then the issues then stem with now who's available that's going to take it to the next level, as I think, Ali and Herc are rightfully talking about. If you're going to try to push and make people uncomfortable and bring in people who have a pedigree to really push this squad forward, you really only have the budget to kind of hire. I do want to let
Herc, because Herc, I think, is even more rah-rah with it.
Satisfy the fan base. And so I'm really, really interested to see kind of what direction U.S. soccer goes, because, they've put themselves, they set the standard. Now you can agree with it or disagree with it. I'm not
They put
That's not the
themselves.
conversation. The conversation is
They did
this
it
is the
themselves,
way
Case.
they've set it up. This is the way they've set it up. And if they've set it up this way, then you got to go with that.
Go ahead, Herc.
They did it themselves. They did it to themselves. If this is true, that it has to be equivalent of what the women's national team coach makes, that's their own doing. Now, listen, why is it the last time the Copa America was hosted in the United States, they made $46 million net off of that? They had over $100 million surplus to federation until they were sued by their own women, sued by their own foundation, and well, et cetera, et cetera. Why is it they got that money then, and you can assume they're going to get a nice chunk of change for hosting it again? And by the way, this looks like it's been more successful. The stands, there's some good numbers out there. And you can't assume that they could go out there and get a better coach than Greg Berhalter, that maybe you can entice a big name, a big fish. Holly mentioned it. It's ambition. Either you want this or you don't. 1990.
All right, I'll stop there. But it, to me, I heard that as them saying blame the women and blame organized labor. Because if you want to redistribute wealth, this is what you have to suffer.
I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, I mean, I will have to get hold. I mean, I think that collective bargaining agreement is publicly available. I think. And
I did a couple Google searches. I couldn't find the details I was looking for and just ran out of time. So I'm sure, you know.
It turns out there's a lawyer in the United States, a brother, who represented first the women in general in the collective bargaining agreement. He was subsequently, quote unquote, let go, fired. And he became the exclusive lawyer, from what I understand, for Hope Solo in her separate lawsuit. But I think I can find a copy of the CBA, because that's got to be in the CBA. And if it's not in the CBA, then what they're talking is a bunch of bullshit.
Well, first of all, I was wondering, like, why don't they know? Like, this is your whole career.
Well,
your whole job is to know. And you're all former
question.
Players. Like, why don't, you know, this is your whole job. Why don't they know what's going on?
Exactly.
But to even leave it out there like that and to put it again, you're again, because they started off with, and as I think Mutanda, your point, like, if this country has endless resources, why all of a sudden does it become an issue once women got paid?
Yeah, it's amazing. Man. Blame it on it's just like you said, Jared. They're blaming it on the women and blaming it on labor. I mean, it's just it's unbelievable. I mean, it's just like, my God.
Isn't there a larger point here that, like, okay, let's say money was no object. Why would Zidane want to manage you guys anyway?
Exactly, right? I mean,
it doesn't make any sense.
Why the aggravation? You couldn't pay somebody that's decent for that kind of aggravation.
Can you play
sorry.
No. Go ahead, Daniel. But that leads right into this. But go ahead.
I was just gonna say.
The Gareth Southgate one, my bad, real quick. Which one are you exactly talking about?
I time-stamped it for you. It was like the one I put in the chat, but then you have to start at like minute.
I know this is why
like,
we need run
that's
sheets.
when they were
There's so many in the chat. There's so much in the chat.
It was like the most recent one. Oh yeah. Gareth, I think the Gareth Southgate is the one. Yes, it was actually yes. That's the one, Jared, but it's not.
Oh, okay, right. I got you at 5:54. Got it.
5:54. Yeah. But Daniel,
go ahead, Robert, or whoever. Yeah.
Okay. No, I was like,
Daniel was talking.
The equivalent of finding the American men finding the equivalent of an Emma Hayes to manage the men's national team would be like capturing Pep Guardiola or
Jose Mourinho,
maybe Mourinho, maybe Klopp, maybe Ancelotti. Like, in the women's football game, she's one of those. She is one of the ones. She's won the Women's Super League in England, I think 6 or 7 times with Chelsea. Yep. She's finished runner-up in the Champions League, I think once. Multiple semifinals. Obviously, they run into the Lyon, PSGs, Barcelonas of the world, and they lose Chelsea. But Emma Hayes is one of those. She's a brilliant coach. In fact, she should have been managing Chelsea instead of Frank Lampard. That's not to say Frank Lampard is bad. It's just to say Emma Hayes, if you're looking for somebody who understands Chelsea and drives to Cobham all the time, take her. But so to find her equivalent in men's football, like, you'd be asking for the world. And American football, no manager would stake their reputation on trying to fix this. The best you get was like a Jurgen Klinsmann or Greg Berhalter. Maybe they could have got Jesse Marsh, but even he saw Canada as a better option at this point. Or maybe they didn't want to pay him. I don't know. Maybe
and they're still in
have
it.
the T on that one. So
And they're still
With that black ass team.
So this idea that, if we just unleash the shackles and, you know, we're being held back by how much we have to pay women and all of this stuff, remove all of that from the argument. Who would come save you?
It's true.
Because if I'm Zidane and I'm seeing what Deschamps is doing with France, I'm sitting happy. I'm waiting for France because that makes sense. He might even take a pay cut to manage France at this point. But Jurgen Klopp, I've seen people like, hey, yo, let's go get Jurgen Klopp. Why? Why would he do that?
Yeah, I think you're right, man.
That makes no sense.
You're absolutely
from
right.
his point of view. So I lay this out, and before we get to the
Well,
clip,
the invitation, aside from the big money, of course, they're saying if you can be the one to bring the U.S. over,
it's
imagine
worth nothing
that.
in terms of.
I'm just saying. I'm saying that would be the pitch.
It also makes the assumption that America will just from thin air generate a great generation of footballers.
Mm-hmm, that's true. Exactly.
So Zidane comes and he's 9 months pregnant with quadruplets, and he's gonna just birth people already 20 years old and just make them into a great team. He has to work with what's there. And this, all of this leads to the larger point of just American arrogance, thinking if America throws Jurgen Klopp money, if America throws Zidane money, of course they'll come. And when he comes, the talent, this so-called golden generation that we have with, I don't want to say the names in a disrespectful way, but Pulisic, McKennie, Adams, are these a golden generation?
Yeah, exactly.
Not even relative to America. A golden generation might have been Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, that era of players that actually did something in a World Cup. These players, their ceiling, I think they hit with the round of 16 in Qatar. Like, well done, but like nobody can improve this.
One of the conversations that you all sent was when Craig Burley, the former Scottish international, was saying that since he's been in the United States doing commentary work, the U.S. he's noticed the arrogance among the U.S. fans and analysts and whoever else in thinking that the U.S. is better than they are or should be better than they are. And then the other thing that I heard was that just on the way in, I just lost my thought. You had it'll come back. But somebody else had just made another good point that related to something about what the U.S. should or should not expect. It'll come back anyway.
No, I think Daniel's point is extremely well taken. I mean, you can't make a better cake with the same ingredients. I mean, it's, and these ingredients, I mean, let's face it, what's going on here is, and nobody wants nobody.
But wait a minute though. That was the point. That was it, Robert. That was it though. That was it. This is perfect for what you two were about to get into. They made the point. They used to say that it used to be the argument was the MLS is holding back North American USA players from advancing and becoming better. But they pointed out that Uruguay had more players in MLS than all of the U.S. national team throughout the entire tournament, meaning that all these starters on the U.S. men's national team play in Europe. And most of the players on Uruguay's team who bounced them out play in MLS.
Yeah,
so,
you know what that says?
And they actually said that MLS had helped these countries improve their teams while the U.S.
MLS not in a position to agree with
MLS has not improved anybody from Latin America coming to the United States to play. These players that are playing in MLS, if they're from Uruguay, if they're from Brazil, if they're from Argentina, came with a foundation, which means that they weren't good enough to make it in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
They were certainly good enough, without a question, to play in MLS. and they were certainly better than the vast majority of homegrown talent in the U.S. that's playing in MLS, just because they come from football cultures. As you know, as Mourinho says, it's heritage, it's heritage, it's heritage. So
there is
whether these Uruguay,
that I used to call football heritage.
you know, I mean, you can't. I mean, I know. I mean, Mutanda gets, you know, he gets all upset and what have you, but you know, maybe it's because he used to work for MLS. I don't know, but you know, MLS. Mutanda, look, there is a direct correlation. There is a direct correlation between how well this team plays and the quality of play that MLS exhibits day in, day out in the United States.
Okay, there's so much to refute in what you're saying. Let me ask you a question.
But let's back up one more thing.
No. But on that point, but I'm gonna ask you a question and I'm gonna step off. Because I'm not defending him. Again, I want to be very clear. I got notes. There's a reason I put England, by the way, but I'll get back to that in a second. But right directly on MLS, this is, I think, where I take issue with a lot of your statements, Robert, and I think the Craig Burley clip will be beautiful because actually you're one of the people I thought about. What people need to understand is hyperbolic statements can go both ways, right? On the one hand, you have people making hyperbolic statements about U.S. soccer and this sport in this country on the exceptional side. Like, they're so amazing and this and that. And that's wrong. I agree that's wrong. I've never made those statements.
Right.
But on the other side, you can also have hyperbolic statements about the state of football here and the level of players and coaches. Because some people will go, the players suck, the coaches suck. Guess what? That's also wrong. Case in point, even what you just said there about MLS. Now, I understand listen, I got your book. I love your book. I told you how much I like your book. At the same time, you're prone to some statements that are factually incorrect. For example, if you say MLS hasn't helped some Latin American countries or Central American countries improve their level of play, I'm calling BS. Do you know why? There are plenty of players who are in those countries who now can have a higher standard of living playing in MLS and play at a decent level. For example, the one player at Panama, well, not the one, but there was one player in Panama. He was he got red carded, actually. I forget his name. He got red carded against the U.S. Was it Carisqueria? Somebody can help me out. Yeah. Fantastic player. Plays at Houston Dynamo. I'm watching the game, and I was watching it with Ballard FC with my club and a watch party. And I'm watching it, and right away, myself and the players were just like, yo, that guy's running the game. He's a fantastic player. And then it comes out that one of the guys we know some people at Houston. I know some people at Houston as well. And they're like, yeah, they think he's one of the best players in the league. Like, he's quality. Now, the point there is this. If it wasn't for MLS, sure, he might find a place to play wherever, but you can't tell me that he and other players who may not have been good enough or deemed good enough for maybe top European leagues, whatever, aren't now in a place where they can, again, have a decent standard of living and playing in a competitive league. It doesn't mean MLS is on par with these other leagues. That's not what I'm saying. It just means that obviously it's helping a certain group of players, and there's a lot of them. So whether you like MLS or not, you can't ignore that there's some players that are thriving. Diego Valeri is another name. He's actually probably the best example of what I'm talking about. Diego Valeri, I know he's nowhere near the Argentina national team. Not the point. But the point is he's now able to come to the U.S. and play and have a decent career. And you can hear it from his own words and interviews of him or whatever, where he says, yeah, like, I feel I can raise my family here. I can do whatever. Like, that's what MLS has done in part. So you can't say, like, oh, it hasn't helped anybody and the league is trash. Like, that, I just don't agree.
But wait a minute. Let's back up a little bit to the very beginning of your speech or diatribe. At the very beginning, you said, I want to challenge you on the facts. And I didn't hear one fact.
No,
what's the fact that I said that is in disagreement with what you said?
You said that MLS hasn't helped anybody in Central Latin America. That was one of the points you made. And it's not true.
First of all,
there are a lot of people playing in
let me clarify
MLS who come from Central and South America.
Let me clarify.
How does that not help them?
I don't remember. I didn't say.
I think he meant in terms of their football ability. Sorry, go ahead.
Football ability.
Yeah. Okay, but hold
you're
on.
talking about.
All right,
You're talking about.
let me stop. No. Let me stop you. How do you get football ability if you don't play football? Right.
No,
So I'm not saying, because again, you have to be very clear about what we're talking about here. If you're saying that it hasn't helped them with their football ability because they're becoming weaker players in MLS, I mean, again, we can debate that. But your statement of like, well, it hasn't helped anybody. Like, they're playing football and they're making a living in playing football. That's all I'm saying.
First of all, I didn't say it hadn't helped anybody.
You did.
My point. Let me make my point just to make it clear. Okay.
Yes.
Nobody who has been trained and gone through the Argentinian youth system or the Uruguayan youth system or the Brazilian youth system and has gone up that pyramid toward the professional level, nobody is improving their game by going to MLS. They're going to MLS because they know that they can live a bourgeois lifestyle that they can't live in Latin America. Okay? That's another story. But don't tell me that these people are going to MLS and are improving their game. You can't improve your game by playing against people who are not at your level physically, emotionally, and psychologically.
So, but okay. Robert, so then before you all continue, and I definitely don't want to interrupt the overall back and forth, but that point that was raised on ESPN does not make sense. In other words, if most of the U.S. men's national team is playing in Europe and most of the Uruguay national team is playing in MLS and beating the U.S. men's national team, how can you then say MLS is not helping them?
How do you make sense of that? And that's just one example.
So what I'm saying is, let's go back 10 years, okay? Because 10 years ago, there was a controversy that hit the mainstream press, New York Times, Washington Post, all the social media. And it was a controversy between Don Garber, MLS Commissioner Don Garber, and then national team coach Jurgen Klinsmann. And Jurgen Klinsmann came out publicly and said that he thinks it's important for every American player possible to leave the United States and go to Europe and play, because only by playing in Europe, preferably at a top-tier club in Europe, can you get the experience day in, day out to become world class. And Don Garber went through the roof. I mean, publicly castigated him and basically called for him to be fired because he was, quote unquote, denigrating the MLS product, So I'm saying that to say that there's no question about the fact that the league exists. It's doing something for the sport. It's basically sustaining the sport. But I go back to the bottom line. The bottom line here is talking about, talent from Latin America playing in MLS and talent from the United States playing in Europe is missing the ball game. It's like getting distracted about Trump versus Biden in the context of capitalism. It doesn't make a difference, right? The key component here is the NFL. The key component is the NFL.
But let me stop.
The game that's being played in the United States and the mediocrity you see on the men's side is there for a reason. It's there because the NFL doesn't want its pipeline threatened by Black and Hispanic inner city talent going into this sport and getting paid world-class wages. That's what's going on here.
So Mutanda, before you go, let me ask you this. And I appreciate that, Robert. Let me ask this the other way. So I also watched another video that I found just going down this rabbit trail that was arguing that the reason the U.S. men's national team continues to lose, in addition to other things, is because the youth system in the U.S. is geared towards making money, not developing players. Selfishly watching my daughter's experience, that's 100% correct. I don't know about the rest of the landscape or what it is for elite players or whatever, but for the general, that seems to be 100% correct. These coaches don't seem to know what they're doing. They don't seem to care. Some of them are only running this so their children can play for free. It's like a subsidy for their kids. Okay.
True.
So the flip side then with that, if that is to an extent correct, if players from Latin America who end up in MLS are trained in youth programs and systems in their home country and end up farther developed than the average US player who is seeking secondary roles, because that was the other thing. Most of the UN's men's national team that do play in Europe don't start and aren't making major contributions to those teams either.
Exactly.
So if MLS is populated with a large segment of Latin American players who are better trained at a youth level than North American players, but who don't have the opportunity this select few North American players do, and to end up in secondary positions in Europe, would that then go back to Robert's point in suggesting that the NFL, other influences, other lack of seriousness among U.S. soccer, whatever, are playing a role in leading to these, from a U.S. perspective, unfortunate results? Did that make sense? And then please go ahead, Mutanda.
When I want to back up a little bit, because when Robert first started talking and I wrote England, when I put that up there, I think the point there was the imperial core. The U.S. is at the imperial core, and so that's why Robert, Daniel, the expectation, right, and the critique of football in this country is that, hey, you're at the imperial core, so you should be better. Simply put, right? And I know there's more to it, but that's simply put. Now, this is what I maintain is, I want to be very clear, because my only issue with Robert is the hyperbole with which he makes statements that I think are easily refutable. I'll say it again. Because while I acknowledge and I agree that MLS is nowhere near a top league in the world, okay? I agree. I also understand, and not just believe, but I have evidence for this. I have personal evidence, and then I'm going to display more evidence, that there's also a separation when it comes to a nation's domestic league, whatever the top domestic league is, and that nation's national team, right? In this case, men's national program. And what I've always said, I'll go back to what I started this with. We can have these conversations sometimes get muddied, and I think they fall into two different camps. On the one hand, we're discussing, geopolitics essentially, right? And sport as a medium for this jingoism, if you want to call that, where some US fans will be like, oh yeah, we got to be the best, and if only we get Zidane, we're going to win the World Cup, right? There are people who say and think crap like that, which again, I don't agree with, and it's hyperbole. On the other side, and this is where I clash with Robert, we have folks who say MLS is crap. The soccer is being stifled in this country, which, I agree, soccer is being stifled. And yada, yada, yada. The pay to play sucks. By the way, there's pay to play everywhere. Maybe not to the extent, but there's pay to play in everywhere. And so therefore, nothing that comes out of the U.S. soccer-wise is worth any value. All the players suck. The youth development sucks. And I'm like, no, but that's hyperbole as well.
No, but nobody said that. Nobody said that. What you're doing is you're grabbing hold of adjectives like pitiful. You're blowing pitiful. I use pitiful absolutely because I qualified it by saying I think it's pitiful based on where they should be. Based on where they should be without interference from, the godfather here, the NFL. Where would this sport be? That's the issue. Okay. It's pitiful in that context.
I'll qualify it this way, though,
but,
Robert.
don't take the adjectives I'm using and distort them, because
but it's not just
that's
you.
hyperbole on your side, Bull.
No. But this is the thing is, though, we're not just responding to what each other say. We're also responding to just the cloud, if you want to call it that, around this team and how people watch football. But I also think it's like, if we can go, people can go back on the tapes and they want. You can go back and some of the things that you said about U.S. soccer. But I won't belabor the point.
Let me bring up one thing from the clip that Jared showed about Hercules Gomez. Toward the end of that speech of his, he mentioned that the U.S. Soccer Foundation was sued by the women and then sued by the U.S. Soccer Foundation, which is a separate organization from U.S. Soccer. Remember that? Remember when that happened? So U.S. Soccer Foundation came out, this is 2024. This is, I think, in 2020, maybe, shortly after the World Cup in 2018. They came out publicly and said, we are going to launch a program as an organization, as a not-for-profit, and we are going to create 1 million soccer players in the inner city across the United States. We're going to bring them fields, nets, training, etc. What happened? U.S. Soccer in Chicago sent them a letter and said, we are telling you, not asking, we are telling you to do two things. Desist from that program and give us back our name. You can no longer use our name. Now, why did they do that? Because they were taking the sport to the inner city. In other words, they were going to mess with the NFL's pipeline. And U.S. Soccer jumped, just like they usually do, to block that from happening. So that's my only point. And that's something Hercules Gomez mentioned. Now, they quote unquote settled it, but they settled it under the condition that U.S. Soccer Foundation's plan to bring football to the inner city was canceled. It's basically canceled. They whittled down their dream substantially. I don't know where they took it, but my point is that there are forces in the United States that do not want this sport brought to the inner city and into the barrios and ghettos of this country, of that country. It's just that simple. You must agree with that, right?
No, and there's the thing. I do not disagree with that, and I understand.
Okay.
But this
so
is
we've got no argument then.
No, okay. I'll express what my point is, and maybe we do and we don't. But my point has always been, though, again, there's a difference between sharing that sentiment, but then also in the same breath, and whether it's you or other people, I'm just going to say it because this is what it is. I hear this, and then this goes on, where, and maybe some people even in this conversation, where they think that the whole thing is that all the players essentially are crap because of it, and the national team is not going nowhere.
But no one has said that. No one has said that. That's the hyperbole. That right there is hyperbole. Nobody has said the entire league is shit. All of the players are shit. There's 700 players in the league. Nobody has said that all of the players are crap. Nobody has said that the league is quote unquote crap. What I have said, and this is in the book, which you will remember, what I said was MLS was purposely created as the lid on the pressure cooker of this sport in the United States. It's there to make sure that this sport does not explode and become the number one sport in the country. That's why MLS is there. That's all I said, and I still say that. That's why they're there. I didn't say that MLS is crap.
Beautiful. MLS is not crap, then. It's a fantastic league then, right, Robert? It's a fantastic league then, right? It's helping a lot of Central and South Americans.
I'm not saying it's a fantastic league either. I'm just saying it's not a world-class league.
Okay, but here's what I'm saying. Now, the thought experiment, because I want to hear more about people, and I don't want this to just be a back and forth between me and Rob. But this is what I'll say, though. This is no, because I do believe this is important. I think when people are discussing football, I do think that sometimes we don't use like there are footballing arguments here that can place where the U.S. is at in a proper context. So, and I put this in the chat. There wasn't really a response, but I get it because there was a lot of things being discussed. I'm gonna before I go, I want you guys to thought experiment. What nations in the world, in terms of international football, would you say are the elite nations? List them.
Define elite for me, and then I'll give you a list.
Beautiful. How would you? So we can come up to that. That's a great question. How would you define it? How would you define elite?
It depends.
Teams with significant international victories.
Okay,
and
so can
teams you almost would expect to do well going into an international tournament.
I love that. So by that metric,
let's also add the word men.
Yeah, men. Okay, yes.
Men, you're right. Fair enough. We're talking about the men's game. Thank you for that.
The men's game. We're talking about the men's game. So let's just say this. So if I came up with if the metric is the men's game, and the nations that have reached,
what's our time period? Like right now or historically?
No. Historically, the men's game, the nations that have reached the World Cup final, can we call them elite?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay,
not in every instance.
Fair enough. Okay, how about
like
the ones
Sweden have made a World Cup final? You wouldn't.
Are they an elite team though?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So, but who? Okay, right. But,
how about this? How about just?
But there's at least like 30.
I think that's the only country.
There are 30 elite nations.
I don't agree with that at all.
Hungary's made a World Cup final, haven't they? In like the 30s or the 50s.
No.
54.
Okay.
God, this is beautiful. I'm loving this because listen.
But if we said elite teams, come on, man, we're not talking about Hungary because they won in 1954 and haven't won a significant.
No.
Match
That's. I mean, he opened the door to history.
No, I think,
I'm just making it clear that
I thought Mutanda was leaving it intentionally vague to make a point.
No. I'm making this point is being made now because I opened it up to history to say pick what you want, but now
that's what I just said.
Yeah. Well, sorry, but now there's a natural whittling down. Now here's my point. I'm just gonna.
But let's answer your question first. What's your question?
I'm gonna answer my question. You can agree or disagree later, but let me make this point. 80 nations have participated in the World Cup. Is all time. All time. There have been 8 winners of the World Cup, right? We all know that, right?
How many editions?
What?
How many World Cups have there been? There's only one every 4 years. So
since 1930.
Since 1930.
Except that Uruguay, as you probably know, won a quote unquote Olympics-like World Cup in 26 and 22. So that's why they have 4 stars on their jersey.
All right.
But technically speaking, the first World Cup was in 1930.
Okay. So 8 nations have won it, right? 6 of those nations have won it more than once. The 2 who have only won it once, England and Spain. I think everybody here would agree that England and Spain are both football mad nations, thriving domestic leagues, and yet they have won the biggest prize in the sport once. And in England's case, that was way back in 1966. Okay? In Spain's case, 2010. So more recent, and Spain's obviously had a fantastic thing. Right. And now, here's my point. Some people even have I think somebody, I'm just looking at the chat here because it's fascinating. Some people somebody just put England is not elite. And you can, okay. Yeah, somebody put that. Now here's the thing. This is what's fascinating. So if England is an elite, England, by every metric, except for international victories, big victories, by every metric, England passes Robert's test and other people. I use Robert here because the point about MLS. This is where the domestic league comes in. They have a thriving domestic league. Their men's national team is crap. And by crap, I mean They never win anything. And that's sometimes they come closer than others, but they won once in 1966. So if that's the case, what does that prove about football? It proves that internationally, there are only a handful of nations that can reliably be called elite. And even then, there's debate about what they are. Some people may not consider the Netherlands an elite nation, but the Netherlands is obviously a very good team. They've made a mark on history in terms of football, right? Whether it's, even if it's not, they won one European championship, but they've had legendary players, legendary coaches. So nobody would argue that the Dutch haven't made their mark, even given the fact that they have a tiny population. How does this relate to the United States? When I say, and again, I will say it again, I'll maintain, the U.S. team is better than a lot of people give it credit for, even though I acknowledge they're not elite. You can argue, and Roberts argued, right, that they're not where they quote unquote should be. But again, my point is, okay, well, where should they be? They're in the middle of the pack, right? And it's a big ass pack because only a few nations, France has won it multiple times, Germany has won it multiple times, Italy, Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, even though people, it's a long time ago, but Uruguay can puff their chest out and be like, listen, we've done things in the game other people haven't. Even though, yes, I don't think Uruguay is necessarily on the level of France at their best, Germany at their best in terms of recent years. So again, if you're talking about 4 or 5 nations that are elite, why do people get all up in arms if the United States men's national team doesn't, I don't know, go super far? You see what I'm saying? This is where the hyperbole comes in. I'm of the opinion, the reason I can be sort of middle of the road with them is like, I'm like, yo, I don't expect them to be World Cup winners. Like,
but just quickly, isn't the hyperbole you just saying there's only 3 or 4 elite footballing nations?
I was just
like, that was very slick how you just whittled the whole earth down to like 3 or 4 countries that are elite.
Okay, so which ones are there though, Daniel? How many are they?
No, but I asked your definition and you gave it to me. So now I'm just kind of thinking about whether I agree with it or not. I don't think I do.
Seriously, use your definition. How many elite nations are there? Let's list them.
A lot.
So
England. Okay, I'll start.
So England. England is one. Okay.
England, France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, Germany, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay.
Okay. Keep going.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I got to get my geography right. Netherlands.
But let me stop you real quick though, because as you keep going, and that's fine, and you can keep going, but as you keep going, you realize that like the metric that now, this is my point about then people would.
I think I'd stop there. I've forgotten somebody big.
People would have to, when they define who the elite nations are, they would have to put teams in there that have won just as many World Cups as the U.S. men's national team, right? 0. They would have, so meaning. But
using the World Cup as like your defining metric for who is elite and who isn't is kind of like a bit regressive.
Is it not? That's like the simplest. Okay, what would you use though? What would you use?
Just general level of consistency and expectation over a long period of time. We might call it history. Okay. And use that as the metric rather than like whether or not you have the trophy. Because for me anyway, to come up with a metric that would exclude the Netherlands as an elite footballing nation,
exactly, would be ridiculous. I wouldn't
would be kind of silly.
100%, I agree.
And it's only because they haven't won a final, even though they've been in multiple.
They've been in.
I mean, it's being a bit,
No,
that would be like saying like Charles Barkley wasn't an elite basketball player because he never won the NBA Finals. I don't think anybody would agree with that. Or I was gonna say a Utah Jazz player, but let's not.
I love that. I would agree with that. And so this is the point exactly. Point exactly. Let's say you come up with.
Yeah, who would have thought that dude would be worse, more problematic in real life than Barkley? Back in the day, nobody would have expected that.
If you hold on, just quickly, seeing as you guys are like my uncle age, did you guys not know about this at the time?
No. I never heard a word about Karl Malone's nonsense and his.
So you guys just did it. It wasn't.
No, I heard about it. He was.
You heard about it back in the day?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I heard about it back in the day. I mean,
I was like 7 or 8. I just knew like
and this
Pick
was
and
like
Roll and
before
John
social
Stockton
media.
and Jeff Horner. I didn't like them.
I mean, he had a reputation before social media came out.
Really?
Absolutely.
Man, all I can say is you'd have been hard pressed to find a bigger, just in general, fan of the NBA and the NFL and college men's basketball back in the day than me. And I never heard, I'm just saying, I never heard a word about any of that. So, but okay. All right.
So no, but back to your point about.
Can I play the Greg Burley clip about Hyperbole? I do have that pulled up.
Please, because
did he call it Hyperbole?
He did say he doubled down on it too.
Yeah. Do you know one of the problems? I'm going to say this in all seriousness. Do you know one of the problems in this country around this sport? And I've said this.
Oh, Belgium.
When I arrived here over 10 years ago, is there's too many people with too much hyperbole, right?
Hyperbole.
I call it hyperbole. There's too much
English.
That's the way I see it. There is too much of that from analysts, journalists, broadcasters, and they continue to do it. And what it does is it builds up some false narrative and expectation.
Yeah, that's a positive attitude.
And then it all falls flat in its pie most of the time, because the expectations get beyond reality. And I've said that from day dot coming here, and people say, you don't know, and you're just this. No, it's the truth. The decent players, the good players, but you have to look beyond where some of them are playing.
Yes.
And then you have to get in the real world of these experienced, gnarly countries with guys that have been over the coals, that know their job. That's the reality. And this is another big wake-up call for this 2026 World Cup in 2 years' time, about where the United States are in the current climate of their talent.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. They're going to get dragged up and down the field.
You cut it off before he got to the.
Did I?
They're middle of the road. Like, yeah, they're middle. But
my bad.
Yeah, but here's the.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, and that's why I put it in your chat. And that's what I'm saying is like, there's the extremes, right? They suck and this and that and the other. Oh, they're supposed to win this and that and the other. No, they're middle of the pack. And did you catch the part, by the way? He said, he acknowledged this. And this is what I'm saying, that, and I don't think there's enough of this in this chat. That's why the pushback for me, it's not me defending MLS. He said it. They're good players. They're decent players. He said that. It's ridiculous even for people to suggest that, okay, you can have your critiques of MLS. Again, you look at the players that the U.S. men's national team has had. MLS is partly responsible for some of their rise to the point where bigger teams and bigger leagues would like to take a look at them, right? So at some level, they are helping some players. I'm not saying that's great. Again, I understand that point. What I am saying, though, is that you cannot say, there's no pipeline of American players. No, but yes, there is. And by the way, just if we use the national team as an example, if the U.S. men's national team has gotten results in the past that they have been big results, they have. Don't forget, in 2002, they reached the quarterfinals, and they were a missed call, and it was a missed call. It's a blown call. It's the wrong call. They were a handball call away from being in a semifinal in 2002. That U.S. men's national team.
That whole World Cup was fugazi. But
come on, man, stop it! Like, come on. I hate when you do that. Why is it fugazi? Were they not in a quarterfinal? And did they not have a handball that was
okay? Turkey got some stuff, and was it Korea in 2002 that, like, when you go look back, it's kind of like home.
But this is what
home nation tax. But
all right, fine. In 2010, they won their group, and they got out. They beat they right. So what I'm saying is, if we just take, so you talk about consistency over time. To use your words, Daniel, the United States men's national team has been consistent over time. They've been consistently.
I think
Yeah,
I said in the group they're like a top 25.
Top 25, beautiful
in the world.
Yeah, I agree. But that's what I'm saying is though when.
But how many? Okay, if there are 200 plus countries in the world, and we get rid of certainly not to be disrespectful or dismissive, but we get rid of like the Micronesia, Tuvalu, and all of those like little ones.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably talking about like 100 nations realistically who like have a football program. Let's say.
Okay.
To be top 25 for a nation of America's resources.
Yeah, but
on top of this level of arrogance, where they would say we can get Zidane. If LeBron James just decided out of thin air he wanted to play football, we would dominate the world.
But stop.
I'm more annoyed by the perception that Americans have of what they think their football team is capable of, rather than what the football team is actually capable of.
So first of all, let's just say it was 100. Let's just say it was 100 teams. Beautiful. I'll follow your logic. If it was 100 teams and the U.S. is top 25, that's again can't be called.
That's all right.
That's all right. Good. But again, your level, what you're talking about, certainly I haven't said, I'm not saying I haven't said that. And to me, it's the uneducated who say that. It's the people who don't know what they're talking about. And that's why what Craig Burley was saying is spot on, right? The people who have the level of arrogance that you're talking about with regards to the U.S. men's national team don't know football.
But that's the majority of people, Mutanda. Would you?
No, it's not. Well, you talk to different people because here's the thing. Listen, I'm the one on this panel with you all, right? I'm the one here who's tell you because I've played professionally, I've worked in it, and I've been telling you, no, they're not elite, but they're also not like crap, like they're middle of the road. So what I'm saying is there are more people like me. I'm not a unicorn, folks, right? It's just that those voices get drowned out, right? They get drowned out with the hyperbole of these other statements. And because people have biases, people have, certain things that they want to say. And then they just paint with a really broad brush. But again, just going by what you said, I agree with you. If the U.S. is top 25, and I think they are in that road, like top 25, sometimes top 20. I mean, they've cracked as high as 15, and you could say, oh, well, I can see they're playing that way. And then, boom, they play a good team, and they come crashing down a little bit. Fair enough. But they're in that middle of the road. But here's the thing is, and the one thing I want to really directly challenge you on, and everybody on, the level of arrogance that the U.S., that certain people in the U.S. fan base or pundits, whatever, the level of arrogance they have is also not exceptional. It's not unique. And that's part of the reason why when Robert was first starting to talk, I put up England. England, every tournament expects that their
it's
team
coming home. The trophy's coming home.
Right? And then think about this. Let's stay on England.
But it's a more logical expectation given the talent.
No, here's the comparison, though. It's the Cecil Rhodes connection. Go ahead. I'll come back to that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
They won once in 1966. How is it more logical? They won once in 1966.
It's the Cecil Rhodes connection. It's the connection. It's the manifest destiny.
Listen,
European.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mutanda. I'll come back to it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
England. You want to talk arrogance? The English national team coach in the Euros this year. By the way, they're in the quarterfinals and they've been crap. They played 4 games. They've been crap. They should have lost against Slovenia.
That pissed me off.
Yeah,
I was so pissed off. I've never been more mad at a black ball player. I was so mad it had to be Jude Bellingham doing it too. I was like, God damn it. With a bicycle kick.
The idea that England, everything.
I was mad too, Jared. So you're not evil. You're not evil.
Everything that people say about the U.S. men's national team in terms of the expectation, oh, this is a golden generation. This is this and that and the other. England and English media and they say that about their team when they haven't won internationally since 1966. Italy, Portugal, France, in all of these nations, Spain, when their teams don't win, their press crucify them. There's pressure on these teams. They're sacking managers even for doing things that a lot of nations would be like, no, that's awesome. So with all due respect, the level of arrogance that people think that is in the U.S. soccer community and fan base, yes, I agree, it exists, whatever. That's no different than a lot of these European nations that are like, yo, we need to win this or else.
So,
right?
But there is a key difference To me, there's a key difference.
What's the key difference?
The Cecil Rhodes connection, and this is my point. Other nations expect to do well because they've invested culturally, financially, they've committed to the sport. To a certain extent, obviously, this would be the case also with England. But the distinction between their Cecil Rhodes with the United States is they expect to win because of their whiteness and their colonial dominance over the globe. I'm telling you, especially here in the United States.
How can you say that when the team looks the way it does?
But my point is, it's the irrational. I'm talking about it's irrational from the perspective of the fan base, especially here in the United States, that doesn't care at all about the sport. Unlike English, I'm not trying to disrespect English fans. I know that they're lunatics, but they actually care about the sport. But they expect to win because they've connected it. And I'm telling you, you got to watch OJ Made in America to truly understand what I'm getting at here. Those USC fans held up OJ in the way that these British fans are holding up Jude Bellingham right now, because he created for them their whole identity. Here in the US, they've built it up differently, but their perspective on the game is once we've gotten into the game, we should be winning. We're the richest, we're the whitest, just cuz. And that's where, and then this is where I'll stop. And I didn't notice it until just now. The cuz is whiteness. Yeah, the cuz is whiteness. This is what I noticed just now as we were playing these clips. Because of the coverage being on Fox Sports, I've seen the differences of the coverage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but ESPN does not have any true blue white Americans commentating on their soccer or their football broadcasts. Unlike
Casey
Fox.
Keller?
Maybe I'm wrong. You caught me. I'm wrong. He would be wrong. I got it. Damn. I was about to, you messed it up, Daniel. Shame on you. I was about to be deep.
He's the only one. He's the only one.
But my point would be, this is why they catch it. And if you watch the Fox coverage, it's total lamentation with Alexi Lawless and his
Carly
fully
Lloyd
adopted,
and
all of them. And go ahead. That's it. That was it. I don't have a point. I thought I was onto something. Go ahead. And Daniel messed it up.
Yeah.
God damn it.
No. But like, you have it because Alejandro Moreno's from Venezuela. Burley and Nicola from Scotland. Hislop is from Trinidad. And then all the
Thomas
other people,
is from England. And even Herc and what's his name? They're really Mexican nationals. They're deeply connected to Mexico. They're not American. They're not American.
Frank LeBeouf, Julian Laurent from France.
I have to ask you this though. When you talk about the United States and their well, let me preface this by saying, first of all, again, this is why I'm saying everything that you said, when you bring in the political, all that, I do believe, of course, they're interrelated, but that's one side of it. And this is where I'm saying that when it comes to the actual footballing, like on the field, what happens, there is a slightly different conversation and then the other considerations. But my question to you would be, do you think, because when you talk about the whiteness in play in the U.S. and that's why they think they should win, you think that the U.S. First of all, who are you talking about? Are you talking about?
I'm talking about the fans. I'm talking about the fans and probably the federation, but definitely the fan base. Because I have a suspicion that the players are less deluded about where they really are vis-a-vis other players.
Yeah, yes, they are.
Yeah,
yes, they are. But also the fan. But this is my point. Is but
can I ask a clarifying question? Like Mutanda, like what viewpoint are you speaking from? Are you speaking from a coach's viewpoint? Are you speaking from the federation's viewpoint? Are you speaking from a fan's viewpoint? Is it all of them combined, or like?
No,
because when I listen to Jared, I feel like I'm hearing an analysis of how the country at large looks at it, but I'm still kind of confused about where you're coming from exactly.
No, mostly the analysis of the game, like the coaching aspect of it, or you can say as a coach, but even I would say as a fan. But even this is the thing, I think it's a slippery slope to talk about what fans of the U.S. I mean, we have to describe exactly what we're talking about, right? Because again, there are fans, I know them, who like think like me in a way, or who are like, yo, we're not terrible, but we're also not great, and we're never going to be great until a lot of the things that Robert champions, happens, right? Then we're not, So, and this is my point is those voices can get lost in the jargon and of all this other things. So part of my
just go, what do you think is creating when you do that hand motion in the jargon? Like, what is creating all of the woe that to where your voice gets lost? What is that?
So part of it is that you can say the folks who have the super patriotic view, right, and who have this ridiculous notion of so this American exceptionalism idea, right, of like, because we're the U.S. and this and that. It's related to, and again, I think one of the first episodes, Daniel, you and I had a disagreement with Jared on this, or maybe Jared and Robert, but definitely Jared, about this idea like, if only our best athletes played soccer. To me, that's like the most arrogant thing ever, because part of what you're saying is you think that like in other nations there aren't players or people who have like the body type of like NBA players who live in soccer crazy nations whose federations have looked at them and said, yeah, no, we're going to go for these other players, right? Like people like this, that argument is ridiculous. I think that's been proven over time. It's not about having better athletes. It's about having smarter football players. So my argument comes from this standpoint is
Jared doesn't agree.
Yeah, I don't buy that one either.
The Americanness in your mind cannot allow you to think that. I can't. I get it.
I might be trapped, Mutanda. I might be trapped, but I can't see it. I just can't. I swear to God. If they, no, I'm just playing. Go ahead.
You just think that like, hey, if we get LeBron early playing ball, the U.S. is gonna like run the world. And I'm like, that's not.
I'm not talking about LeBron. I'm talking about. I'm talking about Allen Iverson.
All of that. Michael Vick. All of that. Isaiah Thomas. All of them.
Let me stop you because I'm going to say something that shouldn't shock you at this point, because I've been trying to make this point to you. And again, I'm not championing necessarily MLS. I'm just telling you facts. MLS academies are diverse places, folks.
But the issue isn't diversity. The issue isn't diversity.
Robert,
it's not just diversity.
You just spoke. You're not. Now you're
hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. You're talking about diversity. What are you talking about? Diversity. If you got mediocre diversity, it didn't mean a goddamn thing.
It's not, Robert. I'm just talking about the players that are at MLS academies and how many of them. You talk about Allen Iverson, this and that and the other.
There ain't no Allen Iverson's over that motherfucker. How would you know Allen Iverson and them motherfuckers?
How would you know? How would you know?
And they ain't got no Michael Vick over there either.
How would you know, Robert? Have you worked at an MLS academy?
Because them niggas ain't showing they ain't doing nothing. They ain't gone nowhere. There ain't no Michael Vicks over there.
Because they're in AAU programs.
Shit,
man,
goodness. What you talking about?
They're in football pipeline, American football pipelines.
Don't Michael Vick over there.
You gotta stop because you're not.
Come on. But Mutanda.
I know you have.
Look. You know what? I have all the respect in the world for the fact that you worked for MLS.
No, you.
No, I think that there's an important point to be made.
Hey, Jared,
but I think that we have. Hold on.
Pull up a picture of the US U20. Pull up a picture of the US U20 national team. Just pull up a picture.
It's not a question of diversity.
I know.
It's not a question of diversity. It's a question of
I'm
where
gonna get
they
it.
come
I got
from.
it. I'm getting it.
It's a question of where they come from.
Robert,
the vast majority of these players,
the vast majority. This is a moot point. Unless they come,
it's not moot. We can do some research.
It is moot to me when I try to tell you what an MLS academy looks like, and you're like, it doesn't matter. There's no Allen Iversons there when you haven't stepped foot in one. So how are you going to try to tell me? Like,
I'm looking for an Allen Iverson on the U.S. men's national team. There's no Allen Iverson on U17.
I don't even know what that looks like. I don't even know
what it looks like is somebody that's a world-class player like Mbappé. Is anybody coming out of the United States like Mbappé? Come on, Mutanda, meu Deus do céu. Come on, meu Deus. You can't do this to us. You're crucifying us here.
No, you're just so stuck.
Mutanda, I do have to say, because Mutanda, the what I hear in Robert's argument is that if kids in the earliest of ages are showing signs of talent. They're being taken to AAU camps, football camps, track camps. They're not being. There is no. I can't imagine that there's an equivalent soccer or football pipeline.
I'm working.
Okay.
If
right.
you either gonna trust it or not. But the thing is, there's no arguing with the way that you're presenting it, because it's very, very, very disingenuous. Because even Robert, when you say like there are no talents coming out of here and whatever, again, I'm not talking about the number of talents coming out of the U.S. comparing it to like a Brazil. I'm not talking about
my numbers. I'm talking about quality.
Okay. But then if I list it, then you will go, oh, well, that is. Kevin Sullivan is.
My only response is this: the United, especially on the men's side, because I have to admit, in this conversation, we have completely ignored the women, because there is an important juxtaposition that has to be considered when you compare the U.S. men's national team with the U.S. women's national team. So we should get to the women at some point. But
come on, wait, Robert, don't do that to us, because we have plans to do that, and it's developing in the chat, and we're talking about the Copa America on the men right now. Don't you?
I understand that.
You're setting us up, Robert.
I'm just trying to get my point across. My point across is that MLS and the MLS, whatever that that level below MLS is, MLS Pro or whatever they call it, the MLS academies, whatever it is that MLS has set up in the United States. If there were an Mbappe coming up the pipeline, you can believe, first of all, that kid would not stay in the United States. He'd be 13, 12, 11 years old. He would get snatched up by some club.
There are plenty of those players in European clubs, Robert. Look up FC Bar. No, because this is where
but I mean, Mutanda. Hold on, Mutanda. Hold on, you gotta hold on, bro. You gotta hold on.
There's a list of American-born players who are.
I gotta let each other land, bro. Let a man land, and then you can like co-pilot.
Because let him land. Sense, my man. But you don't want to hear it. That's literally. Because
it's not that I don't want to hear it.
You
know what it is? You know what it is, homeboy? You know what it is? I'm from Missouri, bro. You got to show me. I'm from the show me state.
Oh, shit.
I ain't seen shit. I have not seen
Mutanda, though. Seriously, Mutanda. Seriously. No, Mutanda. Wait, it's not disingenuous. I'm not being disingenuous. I'm not when I'm saying what I'm saying. And I think what I hear in Robert's argument is the same thing. Seriously. Are you really saying that there's an equivalent pipeline into world football coming out of these black and brown communities in the United States that goes to track, even boxing? Even boxing is going to scoop them up before they get picked up by the local MLS or football, soccer academy. You really, I mean, even in terms of what kids think is and families think is a possibility.
Can I try to bridge something, Jared?
But quickly? And then we gotta, in fact, my bad, y'all. I gotta sort of wrap by 8 my time. So yeah,
okay.
We got like 20 minutes or so. Yeah.
All right. So I think you and Robert, meaning Jared, are looking at the current crop of player. Correct me if I'm wrong, and you're looking like, where is this talent that Mbappe, where is the next, I don't know, Jude Bellingham, where's the next Vinicius, and you guys don't see it because it isn't there. Mutanda, I feel like, are you speaking from somebody who's working with under 12, 13, 14, and you see a development in the youth players that you think in time it can be like that? Is that the difference that's here?
No, quite frankly.
Or are you saying that like the talent is there now on senior level to Mutanda?
The reason I'm frustrated is because even in the examples you give, so Mbappe's and all this, even in their own countries, those players are they're rare for a reason. Like they're special talents. So this is when I say you're making disingenuous arguments. Again, I've always said I'm not comparing the pipeline in the U.S. to the pipeline in these other places. I'm not. What I'm saying is, and what you all are not hearing, is that for example, the structures that exist now, as flawed as they are, there is talent being produced and there is talent being exported that contributes to the U.S. being where they are in global football. Where they are in global football is not at the bottom. And Robert, before you did a fantastic job of sidestepping a lot of things that you certainly have said, but definitely one thing you've said that I know these guys will corroborate is you liken the U.S. to like a third world country footballing wise, which is completely asinine, right? It's not true. Because how can you be top 25, right? Because if we just go off of what Daniel and I were talking about earlier, like, oh, they're top 25. Even top 30, I'll give you top 30. They could be number 30, and it doesn't mean that they're like ass. So all I'm saying is, and this is me coming from what I continue to say is, you just don't have a respect for soccer here, and that's fine. You can have that, but then don't try to actually come to somebody who's working within it, who sees the players, knows where they come from, right? And say, no, that player's not there. No, that player's not there just because they're not Mbappe. Like, guess what? England's also looking for the next name your player, right? And again, we started this. The whole genesis of this conversation was the U.S. crashing out of a tournament and us now discussing where the U.S. is in. And this is my point of like, people don't discuss this accurately, right? They don't assess this accurately for many reasons. And the example is exactly this interaction. You guys can't assess this accurately because you're so stuck in this, no, the athletes aren't there, the Allen Iversons aren't there. And because you're stuck in now, the Allen Iversons aren't there, you can't actually assess how good or how the level actually is. And the really, really, really frustrating part is, and this is where, yes, it does get personal. Listen, I've played pro here and I've worked in those levels. So don't try to tell me, oh no, but the diversity is this, that. I know where the players are coming from. There's some good players. And I don't care if you don't like it, but you cannot, again, say incorrect statements like, yeah, there are no players who are 13 from the U.S. who are the – no. There's a list of players who are moving on. They may not be starting at AC Milan, PSG, and these – yeah, it's tough to do. Like, it's tough to do. But what people do, and I'll end with this, what people do in this country and what you've all continued to do, what you've proved is they have a paradigm with which they view the sport. And from whatever that paradigm is, they make their statements, they make their stance. And then they make a lot of hyperbolic statements.
But Mutanda, this is sort of what I'm getting at. It's not to say, I'm not trying to disrespect the US players. I recognize the fact they were doing so well the other night that it was pissing me off. They weren't getting blown off the field in the way that I would have liked to see happen.
They rarely do.
They rarely do.
They rarely do.
My point though, is that one, I don't want to see the U.S. in world football do well.
Okay,
so I'm admitting that.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, this is the other thing, though. Let me try the other point.
Yeah.
So look at basketball.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite jokes at this point that nobody laughs at like I do is that the best thing Michael Jordan did to hate on LeBron was play in the Dream Team back in '92, because that woke up hear my point. That woke up the rest of the world to get better. And then here we are, and you got Europeans like the Joker stopping LeBron from getting his 5th and 6th rings and rivaling Jordan in the championship. And my point would be that once those other countries saw and were inspired, they started to, from my understanding, readdress their approach to the game of basketball, reallocate resources, emphasis, support to develop players that are now taking black players from the U.S. off teams. So what I'm saying is, why would that not be the case in reverse? If the U.S. did the same thing in developing with emphasis and support players that would have gone into other areas and other sports. And that's where I start to agree again with what Robert is saying about the NFL, this and that, and other thing, my little thing about race and all this other stuff and what and they want so that's what I'm saying. So it's not to disrespect the current crowd. It's to say that there would.
Question. Yeah,
that's it.
It's a beautiful question, and this is my answer to that. A simple answer to that, though, Jared, is that even if the U.S. does, and first of all, I think they have tried to do that. right? Now it's like, because there's money being pumped in. Now, again, to Robert's point, and it's not a sea change in terms of like making the game super accessible and picking players, like it's not. But this is my point: is the reason the men's national team isn't as successful also has to do with, and now this is maybe not purely a coach's hat, but this is just football 101, because it's not that simple. It's not that easy to win. It's not. And the proof of the pudding is these other nations who are elite, who we would agree were elite, they're certainly part of that pack of 30 and probably top 10 or 12, who in Europe, you can even say, even if you just contain it to Europe, forget even about South America. So take out Brazil, take out Argentina. There are any number of nations in Europe who allocate a bunch of resources who still can't do what like the US and other nations want to do. Why? Because it's difficult. All you have to do is look at England. They've won once.
Can I ask a question?
They've won
once.
Just
real quick. England, but what other? Wait. But Mutanda, this is my point though. Check this out. What other sport in the world does England produce any amount of dominant athletes?
Why does that matter?
Because what I'm saying is, in the U.S., the U.S. does produce dominant athletes in basketball, track, obviously American football, baseball. Because that has been their emphasis. That's all I'm saying. England's emphasis has been on football and cricket.
But it's because football's different. It is.
Well, they say they invented it. We'll have to say. So now you say this is different in terms of sports. It's different.
Yes, 100%. Because Jared, the big thing about we got to get a certain caliber of athlete playing the sport, because this is what eventually your argument goes back to, right? It ignores the fact that the sport is it's obviously physical, physiology matters, but it's also cerebral, and it's not like other nations don't have a certain physique, right? That is not picked to be part of their best teams. For example, let me just let me stop talking in theory. Spain's national team that won, the Euros, the World Cup, then the Euros, like a real golden generation. It was players who were 5'6", 5'7" at the hub of that team. So my point in saying that is there's evidence there's evidence upon evidence upon evidence that it doesn't take the United States to now get these amazing, freakish athletes to go and dominate this sport. It's not that easy. That's not going to happen.
It means that Spud Webb had been given a basketball and not a soccer ball.
No, but
and he would have.
Alvin Iverson. I don't know how you can make that. That's a huge leap. That's a huge leap. That's like
these are little players who became dominant athletes in major sports.
But that's a thing. But that refutes what you're like. Maybe not.
No,
I don't know. Like it doesn't. But to me, that's an American exceptionalist argument that I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way.
To be honest, it's a Black American exceptionalist argument. I would have to be, if anything, it would be that.
But Jared,
that because look at the African continent, too, right?
Yeah.
Look at the African continent, and there are amazing players who come from there.
Right, but obviously the recent colonial history does not afford most, if not all, African nations the ability in the space to produce and emphasize developing athletes in this way. And then, as we've already talked about, they become the colonial relationship plays out in sport, and all of their best players get exported to Europe. So that's exactly that's sort of my point, that it's if they had the space and the resources and the absence of a colonial relationship to develop their own, then of course African nations could produce as quality a player as anybody else, because all of them do. They're all playing in Europe right now. They're all winning for. Because I gotta go. Let me give you. Anybody want to take any last relatively quick thoughts? Otherwise, obviously, I can't wait till we reconvene. I really appreciate you all doing these shows with me and with us. I
was only going to bring up
go ahead.
One slight point, or maybe it's a question to Mutanda, and I realize we're going to do a show on this, but I would maybe like a quick answer. How do you explain the women's team then?
Yeah, perfect. The women's team and the how I would explain that is actually, and then discussing it with the coach who's integral into the program. There's a misconception with the women's team, and the misconception is this: the women's team actually now and in the women's program plays quote unquote better football than they actually have in a lot of their previous iterations. And by that I mean in terms of like what the women are being asked to technically and all that, because earlier they could get by in women's game with their physical prowess. They were much farther along. Yeah, but now
could have been steroids.
The U.S. women are not the gold standard. The U.S. women are not the gold standard in women's football. Currently, that gold standard is Spain.
I thought you would go here. So when did Spain really start caring about women's football? And how was the acceleration of their women's football program so rapid that it was able to usurp a United States that had been dominant for the past 25 years? Is there a
and when is the last time Spain has produced a track champion?
Maybe they don't care about track.
That's my point. That's exactly my point.
What does that have to do with playing football? I'm going to ask you, what's the correlation that you have between track and football and playing football?
Just being an incredibly highly, maybe at the most elite level, prepared athlete. So again, I don't automatically mean that's going to translate into soccer abilities. What I'm saying is, if the emphasis in making men and women the fastest in the world is translated into making them quality football players, it will happen.
No, and I'll give you a very simple reason why. Yeah, and that's beautiful. I think this is a point.
I mean, I am stuck there, Mutanda. You're going to have to work with me on that one.
No, because for this reason, Jared, and there's examples. This is what I mean. So playing football requires a different process. Track is a sport where you sprint, or the gun goes off, you sprint, go. It's purely physical.
That's not fair to track. Let's be a little bit fair to track. There's a lot more technically to that than that. There's a whole lot to how you run, how you hand batons, your pacing, your step length, your all of that. Come on now. I know, and I ran a little bit. My daughter runs, so I'm just saying it's a little bit more than that. And I'm not saying that I'm not trying to say that just because they're fast they would be good soccer players. I'm saying they have become the incredibly well-honed, physically capable, and if they had spent that requisite time preparing their skill on the track to their skill on the football pitch, I think you would see some change in who ends up where.
Hold on real quick, Daniel, let me land. The reason I say no to that, Jared, is because what you're doing, Jared, I understand that, but then what you're disregarding is the level of difficulty the challenge with becoming proficient at playing football, right? And then I told people I don't think I am. I'm trying to say that all of that effort that people go into to running,
right, Jared? So, like,
of course,
movies are your vibe. All right.
Hold
on. I'm going somewhere. I'm just thirsty. Have you ever watched Cool Runnings?
Of course. Come on, man.
Okay. What was John Candy's idea? These Jamaicans are fast as shit, so I'm gonna make them push a bobsled, and hopefully the time that they have going down the track will work. What happened at the end of the movie? They crashed the thing because the guy didn't have the technical ability to drive the sled.
Did they not qualify in real life? Didn't that team qualify for the Olympics?
They did, but they didn't win.
Okay, again, my point, but that's my point. You're making my point. In one cycle.
Oh shit!
You are in one cycle. This white man, of course, it takes that. You have to get that.
Don't I win by saying they almost died?
Listen what I'm saying. Let me land. Now let me get my sip of water.
They almost died.
Wait. No, in one cycle, in one Olympic cycle, taking a group of non-bobsled athletes who were proficient in another area of athletics and turning them into Olympic qualifying bobsledders. Never mind what happened at the race. They qualified. That's no small feat.
Okay.
Makes my point that had that same level of emphasis been put at the earliest of their training instead of in football or anything else, and only in bobsledding, the way because Mutanda, I am not meaning to disrespect this. Where I'm saying you do have to put in, you have to have a certain proficiency to begin with. You have to put in a certain level of work. And what I'm saying is we would see if that transplant was made, they would evolve.
So okay, now the
in greater degrees than we see now.
The reason my mind went to Cool Runnings is because Jamaica is a football mad nation. All the Jamaicans I know love Arsenal, they love Man City, they love Manchester United, and they are the objective fastest people on the planet. So you would think that their football team wouldn't have 0 points in the Copa America, losing to Ecuador, Mexico, and Venezuela.
Fully wrong.
Why is that fully wrong?
Because again,
what you're talking about.
No, it doesn't. Because again, you left out the other part of my argument, which was again, not. First of all, I didn't say that any nation that puts emphasis into football is going to turn out the best football players. Especially if you explode the context of inequality and so on and so forth.
So you're talking about the resources. They need the resources as well.
Absolutely, they need the resources, and they need a whole bunch of other. And then I would need to know more about how many Jamaican-born players end up in some European league somewhere else. I don't know. But my point is,
but then you all shut me off when I was trying to make this point, though, Jared and Robert. You shut me off when I'm trying to tell you that what you're just describing there, Jared, is pretty much exactly what an MLS academy looks like. You have these players who are coming from these places, right? Who are. I'm not trying to be crass. This is real. Who are big, black, and fast. They're at MLS academies. Our team, Ballard FC, semi-pro team, collegiate players. We just played the Sounders' second team a couple weeks ago, right? They're called Tacoma Defiance. And so, right, it's a feeder team for the first team. A lot of young
MLS
players.
names are horrible, by the way. But
Yeah, whatever. If you look at their roster, you can see the players on there. If you watch them play, if you were to watch them, you'd be like, yeah, that brother's wow. If he wasn't doing this, kicking soccer, he could easily be, I mean, like fast. So again, everything you're saying, wait
a minute? Are you again overall?
Mm-hmm.
So as you're saying, we might not be seeing because we're not paying enough attention. We're not on the inside. Maybe the reverse is also true, that you're not seeing the forest for the trees.
No,
so in other words, because let me ask, are you saying that you're getting more players in this pipeline than would be going to the burgeoning NBA camps that are popping up all over the African diaspora, to the burgeoning baseball camps that are already dragging out all of the best Latin American talent going to Major League Baseball? Or again, certainly you're not competing with the crop of black and brown athletes coming out of the U.S. who are definitely going to baseball, boxing, football, basketball, etc.
Let me answer the question by saying this: when in the context of a global sport, in terms of what the U.S. can do or any nation can do to improve, the numbers there, the U.S. the pipeline is big enough to have top quality athletes that you're talking about. And keep in mind, some of these nations that are elite in the world, some of these nations that are elite in the world have less people, full stop people, than the U.S. has registered players, right? So when we talk about football, how does that factor into your argument? Because how is it, for example, that the Dutch, and we use the Dutch as an example because it's a tiny population. They've never won a World Cup, but we all consider them, and I think fans of the game worldwide would consider them elite. The Dutch have less people than the U.S. has registered soccer players. So don't believe this idea that you're talking about in terms of how many people are going here, how many people are going there. There are more than enough.
I'm not talking about just pure numbers. I'm talking about the top. If you go through all the U.S. best athletes or whatever in all sports,
but the U.S. is not suffering. The U.S. is not in its. I can only say this way. And again, you can agree or disagree, but the U.S. is not suffering because our quote unquote best athletes don't play the sport. That's not it.
How could that? I just don't see how you could. I just don't. I'm not. Again,
So-
we're gonna have to
hold
work.
on,
We're gonna have to
so-
solve it today, Mutanda. Please don't be frustrated with me. But you got to understand what I'm saying. Do you? It's not just pure overall numbers. It's the percentages of the most recruited or relished athletes when they're looking out at the landscape in the United States.
Yeah.
What we consider football, or was they call soccer here in the United States, is definitely not the top 5. They're not looking at it. Their parents are not telling them to get their soccer ball. They're not preparing them. They're saying get your boxing gloves, your basketball, your American football, your baseball. I'm forgetting one. But there's another one in there too.
They're not saying get your hockey
But what
stick.
you need to acknowledge.
I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to go that far.
Well, what you failed to acknowledge, Jared, or what I'm challenging you in is the paradigm with which you're making that argument. Because again, that argument, you're making that argument from the paradigm of athletes, football, stardom. Like that's the paradigm you're making that. And what I'm saying is you have to break that because that's not the way the sport is played. And again, the example is, I think the Jamaican example was a great example, but also the fact of like, even hold on, let me land. Thierry Henry, you can just listen to what players who fit this ilk would say. You know, Thierry Henry was in France. Thierry Henry had like Olympic level, like sprinter, like he's fast, right? But listen to what Thierry Henry talks about football and what it takes to be a footballer. It's different. So what I'm saying is there are players, there are athletes, there are plenty of these athletes in the U.S., right, who aren't going to play hand-egg football, who are in certain clubs and in environments, MLS academies, who fit that bill of
Mutanda. There's no way in hell Thierry Henry didn't look up at the track landscape internationally and saw that there were like 50 black men from the United States going to outrun him forever and said, you know what, I'm going to go play this other game. There's no way that didn't happen. That's why I was asking you, when is the last time a French-born runner won a major sprint competition in world competition ever? So he would have been looking at a landscape where there has never been a French-born athlete to win a major sprinting race and said, why would I want to be the first when I can go into this pipeline that already exists, has already won World Cups? Well, maybe, right? They won at least one. Okay, all right. Was more likely to win a World Cup once I get there than me beating whoever. I mean, and even with your Jamaican example, how many Jamaican-born runners are winning these sprints? It's not Usain Bolt is not. It's not that many. It's just.
I think simply put, though, Jared, athletics.
Daniel, I mean, I'm happy to be checked on that, but
Jamaican born or Jamaican heritage, because that brings in Donovan Bailey, that brings in Linford Christie,
running for the Jamaican, running more to my point, running for the. That's even more to my point. Running under the flag of Jamaica in world competition, winning sprints. How many
Asafa
more?
Powell,
beyond
Johan Blake, Usain Bolt, the upcoming one. There's a young kid that's probably going to win 100 meters.
Okay.
I mean, Jared, your argument is basically like if you take Noah Lyles and you make him a footballer, and he trained a whole bunch, then he would just become like Usain Bolt tried to play football and cricket, and he didn't. He became a sprinter.
That's my favorite, but that's such a bad example because.
Are you saying you got to take him from the cradle?
No. No. You can't, because it's the same way of saying look at how Michael Jordan did in baseball. That's not my point. My point is don't look at Usain Bolt after he's already won all these track and played his whole life in track.
How would you know?
I don't. Obviously,
you can't take Noah Lyles at like 24 and say this is what we have, but then like football is such a technical sport. He would have had to been playing it since he was like 3, 4, 5, 6.
Again,
7.
I think you all are disrespecting track by saying there's no technicality in track. People are not just going out there and running fast.
Controlling a ball with your feet is different.
I didn't say as. I said you're disrespecting the technicality in track.
No, but it's not. It's 100% not. It's but even though you say not as. When you dissect what the difference is, it's a stark difference. You're asking.
Y'all are being disrespectful to track runners.
It's a huge difference.
I ran track.
Okay.
I ran track.
Did you? You ran track like my daughter runs track as a precursor to prepare for soccer, not as an actual. I'm running track.
Did you run long distance, or was sprint? You were a sprinter, or
You know what?
All right, I don't know. You're right. I don't know.
Robert would love this. Robert would love this. You know what Brazilians do to prepare for soccer? Do you think they run track or do they do something else? They play futsal.
Futsal, yeah.
They played peladas.
Right.
So my point is, this is part of the problem in the U.S., right? Is people make statements that are hyperbolic and that have no bearing on the actual gameplay. If people are training for football by having their kids run track, you're doing it wrong.
And by the way, there's a clip of Michael Johnson talking about Usain Bolt, and he basically destroys his technique. He says all of his angles are wrong, his shoulders are misplaced. He slates him. The guy ran like 9.7 and he won the gold medal. So even like just raw pace, Bolt was winning. So like how it can be technical. Johnson ran kind of funny, but like being fast is just being fast.
I didn't say again. You keep
the skill it takes to control a ball with your feet is crazy.
Yeah, and if you start dealing with that, at the time people start focusing and emphasizing on other sports, I think we would see a massive change. A massive change. You're never gonna. You know what? I'm not gonna say never. You're gonna have a very difficult time convincing me that Christian Pulisic is the best we can produce in this country. That could be produced in this country if Michael Vick and Allen Iverson and whoever the hell else had been playing from day one. There is no Christian Pulisic. But okay.
No,
but you know what?
I
gotta go. Go ahead. Take the last word. Go ahead. I'm not gonna. Go ahead.
That's not. But with all due respect, and you may not like this because of the racial angle there, the class angle, but that's disrespectful to Christian Pulisic because it's like, I know, but Jared, but you can't do both things. Like on the one hand, you're doing that, you're saying that, but then you're saying like, okay, but he's not good enough. Give you somebody else, as if Christian Pulisic hasn't come up against those very same athletes that you're talking about and been deemed, rightly so, better than them.
No, all of those players all of those best athletes were in, again, AAU camps, American football camps, boxing gyms.
But you have no way of knowing that because you're not in it. You're not in it. You're talking about it from a removed view. I'm in it and I'm trying to tell you. I'm in it and I'm trying to tell you. Christian Pulisic, when he was 12 years old, was a tiny kid, skinny, like wasn't like so you're the main mistake you're making, Jared, that a lot of people make. You're making an equivalence that you cannot make. And the equivalence that you are making is somehow that this athletic prowess that you deem that again, no matter at what level you capture it, right? You're saying like, hey, just get these kids, and you narrowly define that and give them a ball and then they will be superstars. It's like, no. The sport don't work that way. Like the sport globally doesn't work that way. And the proof is, we don't need to be American exceptionalists about it or Black American exceptionalists about it. The proof is all these other nations that win and that continue to win and churn out players who, if you saw them on the street, you'd think this guy's an athlete.
But only in that sport. But that's my point. This country's producing world-class athletes in every other sport.
No, but I'm talking about soccer. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Sergio Busquets, who plays with Inter Miami, who was part of one of the greatest teams ever assembled in the sport. Sergio Busquets is like 6'2" or 3, whatever. He's a beanpole. If you can his shirt off, like he looks like a man. He's lanky. He's not that fast. He's certainly not Yaya Toure, right? In terms of physical prowess, just to compare. Sergio Busquets is a phenomenal footballer. Phenomenal footballer. So what's the point? The point is, clearly there's something about playing football where, yes, of course, your physical prowess is part of it. Absolutely. Like it has to be. At the same time, there's more. And that more is significant. It's crucial. And this is why it's not as simple as, hey, we get bigger, stronger, faster, whatever. And
I didn't say that, but okay. I'm going to give you the last word because I got to go. But that's not what I said. But go ahead. No, go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead. Finish up. Go ahead.
I think your mind is stuck in a particular vein of athleticism.
It is.
And when Americans think about athleticism, it is about speed, strength, jumping ability. and all of the things that one would need if they were playing American football or basketball
100%.
that aren't equally translatable to a sport that's a little bit more technical.
Yep.
Which you would define as football.
Yep.
So I think the paradigm of what you think of when your mind defines the word athleticism or brings up the pictures of athleticism, you think that should be able to translate to every sport, and in most cases it does. So I'm sympathetic to like that conditioning, but with football it's a bit different because there are so many examples of players who don't fit the athletic paradigm that makes sense within the American context that dominate the sport.
Because they were trained and focused on it from an early age in a country that.
But that's a separate
resources
argument.
behind it. No,
And
that's
because-
exactly what
and-
I'm saying here.
No,
That's
but- and
exactly what I'm
because,
saying
Jared,
here.
And because, Jared, a lot of people I second absolutely everything Daniel said. And also because a lot of people who are thinking from the paradigm that you're thinking from are in positions where they can sometimes pick like players or make comments on football, but then they go and then they get smashed. So, for example, with the U.S. women, and here's the other thing. So, for example, when I take kids abroad, like, for example, we go play in tournaments in Europe, we've had kids who athletically much better than some of the teams that we're playing, right? Playing these teams from like, small cities in Portugal and whatever. But we may not win. Why? Because their savviness, their timing, the way they use the ball collectively, the way they arrive in certain moments, all these intangibles that go along with playing football, they're much better at. They clear us that. Why?
That's coaching.
It's coaching, but it's also their culture and the way they view the sport. And if we're as Americans stuck in this, but if we just get this American paradigm, if we just get bigger, stronger, faster, no, that's what the U.S. women's
That's not what I said.
I was just about to bring up the women because
that's what the U.S. women's national team was doing, and it ain't working for them anymore. It ain't working for them anymore.
Mutanda laid out the point that like the
in
women
fact, what I said
dominated because
what's happening to women is catching up to my argument.
No,
now,
it's
why
not.
they're failing.
The rest of the world is beating us because they're smarter.
Maybe we're arguing
and
across
because
each other,
American women are being encouraged in different directions from earlier on in greater degrees.
Bro,
absolutely.
Spain,
absolutely.
For all intent and purpose, Spain just started caring about women's football within the past 2 decades. England, it was illegal for women to play football for a certain amount of time. Now that there's now that there's perhaps a capitalist incentive for them to expand the game, they want to bring a whole other demographic of people into the sport, which is women. Yeah. England and Spain have surpassed the United States in the blink of an eye. But your argument is suggesting that the bigger they are, the stronger they are, the faster they are.
That's what I keep saying.
Which is the paradigm of women's football.
Daniel, both of you have been consistently missing the nuance of my argument. I didn't just say bigger, faster, stronger. I keep saying with putting the emphasis and resources behind encouraging more youth in this country, Black youth in particular, into other avenues of athletics, they would flourish and do much better. And Spain did the same. And because in this country, women, men are encouraged into so many other athletic avenues, Spain, of course, as soon as they turn on the faucet, they're going to have an outcome that's better because they're not gearing towards training their women or men into other avenues of athletics in the same way to the same degree. So I'm not trying to diminish or disrespect.
But I don't think that works with the women's argument because because to Robert's whole point, there isn't a women's NFL equivalent. Like with men, it works, but like there is no NFL for women to go into. Like
in the United States,
yeah.
Right.
What
that's
is
why,
it?
and women are encouraged into gymnastics, into basketball, into field hockey,
more than
into
soccer?
track,
more than soccer.
Oh,
you think?
Jared,
after the immediate youth level, absolutely.
I don't have a daughter and I'm not a girl, so it's actually a genuine question.
No,
I think absolutely, especially once you start getting into. Go ahead, Robert. My bad. Let me just stop.
The next time we have a session, we can start the session off by talking about Title IX, because Title IX is what leveled the playing field for the women, and they did it across the board for all sports, at least in the NCAA levels, Division 1, 2, and 3. So we have to talk about we can talk Title IX when we start the next time and
So that's perfect. We can end where we began. Let's blame it on the women. As soon as women got something, everything got all messed up.
Easy.
Isn't that what? That's not where we were. That's what they were saying.
Well, that's what they said.
Hey, when you just, I'm calling my
Daniel
shot.
left.
I'm gonna call this shot here. If you when the Olympics start and y'all see the makeup of the U.S. women's team, you're gonna see a team that's more diverse, and I hesitate to say that word because of a previous conversation, but you're gonna see a team that's more representative of kind of what you seem to be saying, Jared and Robert, than other iterations of the national team. And we'll see how they do. I'm not saying they won't do well, and I mean they're still one of theirs. But again, when we talk about this juxtaposition of like athleticism versus football ability, like this is not ambiguous at all. Like greater minds than the four of us have thought about this and already come to conclusions where it's like, no, a footballer isn't necessarily the fastest. I'm not going to say bigger, stronger, Jared. I'm just going to say fastest because let's say track. Just a footballer isn't just the fastest player on the pitch. There's a lot more to that. And again, let's use evidence we can just talk names. We don't have to talk theory.
Raquel, a lot of players, Busquets,
there's so many players who are not fast, running speed, who are phenomenal players, right? But because they don't fit the bill for what a Black American pictures as like a prototypical NFL like superstar athlete, it doesn't make them any less good at football. And for the U.S. to catch up to the rest of the world on the men's side, it's not because we need.
I think I'm hearing Jared's point about there needs to be a paradigm shift with how people are siloed into particular sports, and then once they reach football after this reconfiguration, then some sort of athletic dominance from specifically Black Americans would translate into improved performance. I think that's what I'm hearing.
I think Jared is saying more than that, but
I think he is. I just don't think it's not that simple. But that's what I'm saying.
I still think they'd get worked.
They get worked.
Spain or
they do get worked. It's not that they don't. They do. Whether they're black or white, big, strong.
I have to admit that I'm like I'm on Jared's bandwagon for this one for sure.
Well, of course, you haven't spent time in any academies in the MLS because you think they're all shit.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Of course, you're
I didn't say that. All I'm saying is, show me an Mbappe, and until you show me an Mbappe, you talking, you blowing smoke. So
ain't no Allen Iverson over that motherfucker. That was a good one.
Peace, because I know you're willing to fight for it. Like Fred Hampton used to say. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. Please like, share, subscribe. Come back and check us next time when we get back into this. Catch you next time. Peace, everybody. Let's get out of here. Yeah.
You sacrifice.
Calm. Kindness, kinship. Love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy and defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything.
And what do you sacrifice?
Calm. Kindness, kinship. Love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, they set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything.